Welcome, everyone. My name is Coach David. I'm here with Financial Aid Secrets. Today, it is August 28th at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and we are here, and we're going to be talking about early action, early decision, and how this affects financial aid today, okay? So before we kind of get going, I just want to go over the agenda really quickly. So we're going to have a quick welcome for our new families, right? We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, right? I'm also going to talk a little bit about financial aid news, right? And then we're going to talk about kind of the early process, right? Early action, early decision, how it's going to affect your timeline, what needs to happen early, and then again, how can I help, right? So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about who we are, right? We are Financial Aid Secrets. We are here every single week, minus major holidays, 6 p.m. Pacific time. We are looking for different times too. So if you guys are always like, oh, dang, I can never go to those meetings because they're always at a time where I'm not available, let us know. And then, if we get enough requests, we might switch that time out. Okay. But every week we try to bring up the new issues that are going on with financial aid and also things that families should be thinking about as we're in certain months throughout the year. Right now, one of the things that we always ask from our parents and students is if you have questions about the financial aid process, reach out to us, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Discord, if you're one of our coaching families, email, whatever you can do. Excuse me. Just reach out to us so that we can get you the answers that you actually need. Okay. Now, we've been doing this for the last decade and a half. Okay. We've helped a lot of families, get a little bit of breathing room, right? A lot of families, college is expensive for any family, right? And so some families just need a little bit of help, right? Over the past decade and a half, we've been able to save millions of dollars, right? And hopefully now it is your family's turn to reap those benefits. Okay. Now, the first thing I wanted to kind of start out with was financial aid news, right? Because every week it seems like there's new things that are coming out and that are affecting kind of the financial aid landscape. Okay. So let me kind of go over kind of the general things that are happening right now, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I actually kind of reached out in our training and told families, hey, you know what? For the class of 2025, the financial aid process is going to be delayed again this year, right? But even with that new announcement, they still haven't fixed what happened last year. So there are a lot of students from the class of 2024 that have not gotten their financial aid disbursements yet, right? So they haven't paid for college yet. And if by not paying their bills for college, they're not able to sign up for classes, right? So there's a lot of things going on right now, even with last year, that haven't been fixed. So this year, I'm guessing that it's going to be more of the same. There's just going to be more problems, right? And so I am preparing for the worst, okay? Now, one of the good things is that colleges are now banding together to kind of tell the FAFSA people, hey, there's something going on and you guys need to fix it because our freshman classes have become very different than previous years due to the inefficiencies and problems that FAFSA has created, right? Now, this isn't just one college saying that. There's about 400 colleges in the United States that banded together, basically sent a petition over to the FAFSA saying, you know what? Compared to the last 10, 15 years of students that have been coming to our school, it has changed significantly. Okay. Now, maybe that's just a natural change, but it isn't. I don't really believe in coincidences like that. Right. So the year where FAFSA gets messed up, the whole demographic of the students coming to a certain school changes. It doesn't seem like that is just a coincidence. Okay. So I'll keep you updated on kind of what is happening. But at least for right now, we know that for the class of 2025, it will be delayed, right? And that there's still problems from last year. Okay. Now, I kind of showed this picture last week too. But so on the right, right, this guy in the red tie, right? This man was fired last year, right? For all the problems that were created, right? This is the new guy below, right? In the yellow tie, right? We'll see what happens to him at the end of this year, right? But again, I will keep you updated on what's going on, right? Not that we really care who's the head of the financial aid or the kind of the kind of federal student aid office, right? But we want to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on in financial aid. Okay, so let's get straight into kind of the kind of training topic for today, which is early action and early decision. Okay, so before we kind of start talking about it and how your financial aid might be affected by it, right, especially for the class of 2025, right, I'm actually going to first talk about early action and early decision and what it actually is, because there are probably people here that do not exactly understand what is this situation, right? So the first thing that I will say is that early action and early decision are terms that are thrown out there and a lot of people have heard before, but there's actually a lot of variations to that, actually more than you think, right? But generally speaking, early action or early decision, right, and all the different variations of it, it's a process where you go ahead and apply early to an institution and you get a decision back early, right? But let's go ahead and see how it's going to affect financial aid. We'll go a little bit deeper into exactly kind of the different types of early processes that there are. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the different processes that are kind of out there, right? We have schools that have early action. We have schools that have restrictive early action. We have schools that have single choice early action, and we have early decision. Okay, so I am going to go over each one of these. Oops. Okay, but generally, right, for these early processes, you're going to turn in everything by November 1st or even earlier. Some schools have a October 15th deadline, and then you're going to get a decision back by mid to late December, okay? But let us talk about each one of these in specific so you guys know exactly what each one means, okay? So just like the houses on the right, they look very similar, but they have their own unique quirks, right? So let's talk about what those are, okay? For early action, right, there is no binding element to this application. You apply normally around November 1st, you get a decision back around late December, and then they'll say either you're accepted, rejected, or possibly deferred, right? But it depends on the school on what decisions they can give. Some schools only do accepted and rejected. Some schools only do, and some other schools do accepted, rejected, and deferred. Now, what deferred means is that your application gets sent to the regular decision pool, okay? So just keep that term in mind, right? Now, restrictive early action or single choice early action, that's a little bit different in that it's the same thing as early action, right? So you turn it in by November 1st, you get a decision late December, and then again, there's no binding element to it. You can make your decision by May 1st. But with restrictive or single choice early action, they're going to have restrictions on where you can apply early action or early decision, right? A very kind of an example, I'm in California, of this in California is Stanford, okay? They are restrictive early action, right? Now, what that means is that if you apply restrictive early action to Stanford, you are not allowed to apply to any other school's early decision or early action, right? Even though the decision from Stanford is not necessarily binding, okay? So keep that in mind there, right? And finally, you have early decision, right? Early decision, again, same timeline, November 1st, you get a decision back late December, but if you apply early decision, as you're applying, the student signs a contract. Your school's counselor signs a contract, and one of your parents signs a contract to the effect that says, if you get in, you will go, okay? Now, once you kind of get your acceptance, right? And again, you can get accepted, rejected, or deferred, right? But if you do get accepted, right? Generally speaking, they say that you need to go ahead and accept your offer within 72 hours. Now, what does it mean to accept an offer? It doesn't mean that you just click a button and say yes. It means that you click a button, say yes, and also pay a deposit anywhere between a couple $100s to $1,000. Okay. So again, that is money that is on the line there. So it's something that we need to understand exactly what's going to happen, especially this year with the class of 2025. Okay. So let us keep going here. Okay. Now, the biggest question is probably, how does this affect the financial aid process? Okay. Let's talk about it a little bit deeper. Okay. Now, as far as like the deadlines for early action or early decision, each school has their own. There's no universal kind of deadline available, right? But generally speaking, for early action and early decision, the kind of deadline for the financial aid will be within a week or two of your college application deadline. So if you are applying by November 1st, generally speaking, the financial aid process needs to be completed by November 15th, right? But as I've been stating for like the last 2 weeks, we know that this year that the FAFSA is not really going to fully open until December 1st, if that, right? I even think that it's actually going to end up being later than that, right? But that means that you're not going to be able to get your financial aid until way later, right? Because if you think about the process, right? You turn it in by November 1st, right? But you can't turn it in until December 1st, right? So they're already looking through applications and all these different things. even if it does open on December 1st and you turn it in on that first day, what they say that in a normal year is that financial aid documents take anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks to be processed. If that is the case and your decisions are supposed to be out late December, what that actually means is that your financial aid is not going to be fully processed until sometime in the middle of January. Okay. So what does that mean for families, right? So there's going to be this domino effect, right? Of, okay, everything's going to get pushed out further, right? So if you are accepted early action, restricted early action, single choice early action, this isn't going to really make a difference if you don't get your financial aid back by a certain date because, well, you have until May 1st to make your final decision. So even if your financial aid package actually does come out in December, well, you still have 4 months to make a decision on that. But if you are accepted early decision, you're going to be in a little bit of a pickle, okay? And let me explain to you why, okay? Just like this bear has his hands on his head, looking at all the math on the board, right? This is where the confusion comes in, right? Like I said before, right? ED acceptances usually mean that you have to accept within 72 hours. That's in a normal year where they give you your financial aid package back with your acceptance if you turned it in by the deadlines, right? So, but in this kind of current situation, we know that that's not necessarily going to be the case, right? And so, I mean, I don't know many families that can make $100,000 a year decision without knowing what they're going to get from that school. Okay. If you are one of those families, like, oh yeah, no problem, $100,000, let me write you a quick check, right? Then not sure why you're here, right? Because you're probably not going to get any financial aid. But if you're one of the families that's worried about that, I think that's most families. Okay. Now, to kind of ease your worries, let me kind of tell you what happened last year. Okay. So last year, colleges allowed families to wait until they had their complete understanding of their financial aid package, even if they were early decision. Let me just give you an example of one of my students that ended up doing early decision to Rice. Okay. They decided Rice was the school they wanted. They applied. They got in. Their financial aid package was not completed yet. So they called the school and they said, I can't make a decision without knowing what my financial aid is going to be. Okay. Now, eventually, they did find out. But let me tell you when they actually got their finalized financial aid package. It was in April. Okay, so the school has the power and the authority to push that out. Okay, to push out the kind of the kind of like decision deadline that they give you, because technically speaking, you don't have to make a decision on your early decision situation if you don't have your financial aid package. Okay, again, like I said, last year, a lot of students were able to push that out and make the decision much later. But that was last year. I'm not sure what the schools are going to do this year, right? The schools are kind of sick and tired of having to wait, right? And again, the schools have said it has changed the demographics of their colleges very significantly, right? So, right, one of the things that I am imploring people to do is this, right? If your student is applying early action or early decision, right? They're applying early in general, right? Now, early action, like I told you before, it's a little bit less kind of like important because again, you have more time. But if your student is thinking about applying early decision somewhere, you need to have a conversation with us to make sure you understand it, what your package will most likely look like, right? Now, I can't guarantee 100% that we're going to be able to hit the nail on the head and be like, you're going to get $27,456. I don't promise that we're going to do that, but we're going to be able to give you a range so that your family can make a decision on what makes sense in your situation, right? But again, we'll continue to kind of monitor how things are working out this year. But for early action or early decision applicants, right, getting things done early is going to be key. Okay. So if you guys are kind of like looking for a date of like, okay, so this is when I need to get things done, it's going to be December 1st. Okay. And trust me, on December 1st, the website's going to go down, right? There's going to be problems. You're not going to be able to get to the next page. You're going to be in the spinning like wheel of death. It's not going to work, right? So what I would say is that within that first week, it'd be very good if you could do that. Okay. All right. A quick word from our sponsors before we go further, right? Now, our sponsors are College Admission Secrets, right? A lot of you guys know Coach Tony, right? And, we've been traveling around California this whole summer doing college application intensives. Unfortunately, I don't have that to offer anymore. But what I do have to offer for our class of 2025 students is our college essay service. if your student is having a little trouble with essays, they need a little guidance. And they need some help on those essays to make sure that they are truly the impactful, pieces of writing that they need to be to give our students the edge into college. Contact us at 415-938-8721. It's a quick text. You just text essay to 415-938-8721. Our team will give you some more information about that program and again, how you can sign up as well. Okay. All right, so back to our training. So I also wanted to talk about some of the rumors that are out there about applying early. Okay. And if anyone has questions about the things that we've been going over in the presentation, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, put them in the chat so that I can answer them at the end. Okay. But here are some rumors that I've heard people talk about, and I want to make sure to address them. Okay. So one of the things that I've heard over and over again is that applying early will hurt your chances of financial aid. Okay. I hear it all the time. Oh, if you apply early action or early decision, they know you really want to go there, so they're not going to give you any money. Okay. This is completely false, right? Whether or not you're applying for financial aid, whether or not you're applying early, you're just considered on your merits and then you're accepted or you're rejected. A lot of people use this kind of as like a scapegoat to be like, oh, like we asked for financial aid and we applied to Cornell and that's why my kid didn't get in. No, that's just an excuse, right? So it has nothing to do with each other. Okay. So applying early, financial aid, there's no correlation. Okay. So just keep that in mind, right? I've had plenty of students get in early action, early decision to multiple schools, get anywhere between $10,000 and $80,000 a year from the schools that they now attend. So this rumor, it's unfounded. Okay. Now, another one is this, right? Applying early and its effects on admissions, right? So I've had kind of like every single situation, that you could possibly think of, right? I've been doing this for a decade and a half, financial aid, and also kind of college coaching, right? But I've heard people say, oh, I don't want to apply early because this, because that. There's so many reasons why people say that they don't want to apply early. To be realistic about kind of like why people are saying that, it's just because the kids don't want to do the work early, right? They want to try to procrastinate and push it off, right? But the only time I ever say, okay, we shouldn't apply early, and again, there are like nuances and intricacies and complexities that I'm not able to kind of go into here. But if there is a student that wants to show improvements on their senior year grades because they had a little bit of a rough year in kind of their junior year, then that is a reason why I tell students not to apply early, right? But it all depends on the situation, okay? But otherwise, right? Like kind of like not looking into kind of like the kind of like very complex situations. It generally speaking, if there's an early action option, I always say yes, right? For early decision, right? This is another situation, right? For early decision, if you are deciding to apply early decision, then for the student, you need to be as close to 100% sure that this is the school that would beat 99% of the other schools that you're applying to, right? On the parent side, you need just how the student is just as like committed to that school. As a parent, you need to be committed to that school financially, right? So it's like, okay, this school, I'm willing to pay up to this amount, right? Again, you'll get a little bit of a better understanding of how much that might be after talking to us. Right? So the commitment needs to be there from the student and from the parent. Okay. Now, one caveat to this is this. Okay. So applying early, you guys have heard it over and over again in our kind of like different trainings that we do. Applying early increases the probabilities that you will get in, right? The early action, early decision pools, the acceptance rates in those pools is anywhere between like double to 4 times the acceptance rates in the regular decision group, right? The one thing that I will say about applying early is that the competition that you are facing is that much harder. Okay. So it's not just like, oh, automatically, you get there's a higher acceptance rate. No, it's because the students that are applying early are prepared. They are ready to go, right? They are, prepared early in the year. They turn things in, right? These are the students that are going to be more competitive. Okay. So that is the one caveat here. It is going to be a more competitive group. but just looking at the numbers in general, there is a very, very, very significant increase in the acceptance rates. Okay. Now, these are some of my takeaways here. Okay. So one of the things is that for kind of like parents, you need to be prepared if your student is going to be applying early action or early decision, right? Now, I've talked to probably about 20, 30 families in the last week or so, right? Now, there are still parents that have not filed their taxes. I've been harping on this for the last 3 months, and I get it, right? I say it every time. No one wants to pay their taxes. It's a kind of like, it's a huge kind of like bane on my existence to do my taxes as well, but it has to get done. And for your student that is applying early action, early decision, it has to get done sooner, right? Because again, you don't know exactly when deadlines are, and you need to be prepared for them, right? Technically speaking, for early action or early decision schools, you could already be applying right now to some of them. Okay. Now, a lot of our families are like in California. The UCs and CSUs, I'm not trying to scare anyone. The UCs and CSUs, you can't even apply yet. So like, hold off. You don't need to worry, right? But for some private schools, you can already turn in your applications. But there's still students that are testing. There's still students that are talking to their teachers for letters of recommendation. So there's a lot of pieces that you want to kind of like make sure are ready to go before you turn those things in. Okay. And the final thing I will say is this: turning in your financial aid documents early may help in securing a stronger package from the school you're going to, right? The reason is because at the beginning, when there are less students applying for financial aid, right, and you're already in, right, then it makes it a little bit easier for them to give you a little bit more. And that little bit more might be $500 or it might be $5,000, but any extra money for college is a good thing, okay? The second thing is this: you need to understand each and every college is different, okay? Like I said before, there's no universal deadline for the financial aid kind of documents. So you have to search each and every school, make sure you know what documents they want, right? And you need to make sure that you turn in things with spare time just in case something goes wrong, right? Now, with the FAFSA, looking at it last year and then seeing that there are continuous problems this year, right? I know something's going to go wrong, right? Now, the hope is that it doesn't happen to any of our students in financial aid secrets. But again, we can't control that. All we can control is when we turn things in, how we check up on things and make sure things are ready to go. Okay. Again, the one thing that I implore kind of, and I beg families to do, is talk to us to figure out what can be done in your situation. Okay. So finally, like, here is how we can help, right? And again, we want to make sure that you understand what your college expenses are going to look like. We want to teach you how to save in the right way. We want to make sure that you guys understand how to kind of maximize your financial aid, right? But to do all these things, I actually have to talk to you, right? I see some names in the kind of chat here where it's like, I've seen them for the last 6 weeks, but I haven't talked to them. So if I can't talk about your specific situation, I can't give you specific solutions, right? So the one thing that I ask is that you show up for a consultation. It's 15, 20 minutes, right? If I can help you, I'll tell you about our program. If I can't help you, I'll send you on your way with a couple tips and pieces of advice, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and put the link for our consultation in the chat so that you guys can go ahead and make sure that you guys sign up for one, right? Now, you might be a family that I talked to a while back, right? And we haven't connected since then, right? If your student is now a senior, if your student is now a junior, this is the perfect time to sign up for that financial aid consultation, right? I have families as young as 8th graders signing up now to take advantage of the lower prices, okay? So whatever your situation is, there's never a bad time to talk to us about financial aid, okay? Now, some success stories, right? I've had parents that make $280,000 a year. They got $60,000 a year at USC. I also have another family that their parents make $350,000 a year, and I got them $50,000 a year at Carnegie Mellon, okay? These are real life examples from our families from just last year, okay? So if you guys do want to save money as well, all I ask is that you guys sign up for that consultation, okay? So once again, if you guys are interested in our college essay service, please text essay to 415-938-8721. And then I want to make sure that we open it up for Q&A. So we'll open it up for Q&A. If you guys do have questions, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we'll make sure to get to them, okay? All right, so here we have a question that says early means which grade. So I think you're asking, like, when I'm talking about early action, early decision, like when are you applying? It's when you're a senior, right? But it just means that you're applying earlier than the rest of the other students that are applying, right? So just as an example, I used Stanford earlier, so I'll use it again. They have an early action program where you apply by November 1st, and then you get a decision back by the end of December, right? If you're applying regular decision, the deadline is somewhere like, I believe it's early January. I think it's like January 2nd or January 5th. Okay. So that's what I mean by when I'm talking about early. Okay. We have other questions here, and it says, when we apply for student aid, it sounds like we apply at the school, or is there another institution that we turn in our financial aid applications? So financial aid, hmm, so this question is a little bit loaded. So let me kind of take it piece by piece. Okay. There are general pieces or like general forms that need to get filled out on certain websites. The FAFSA is a form that you need to send in to the federal government that gets sent out to the various schools that you are applying to. There's also something called the CSS profile, which gets sent directly to the colleges that you're applying to. Okay. And then there's also these verification forms or additional forms that are school specific that get directly sent from the school to you, and then you fill them out and send them back to the school. So the answer to your question is that there is a centralized database for the CSS and for the FAFSA, but then there's also very specific things that need to happen in order for each school to kind of qualify you for financial aid. Okay. All right. We have another question here, and it says, okay, we have a family that already signed up with us, right? And they asked, when is our first meetup? So our first meetup is probably going to be sometime in September. It's going to be a very quick meeting to set up your accounts. But before we do that, by the end of this week, we're actually going to be sending you out a form that needs to get filled out with your personal information. We need a copy of your 2023 taxes. So those are the pieces of information that we need in order to get everything ready for you to have that kind of meeting in September. Okay. But with the delays that are happening with the FAFSA, it might end up being a little bit later, right? But we should be able to kind of go ahead and do those things. Okay. We have another question that says, if I apply early decision, can I also apply early action to multiple schools if I don't do REA? So this is a very school specific question, right? There are some schools that say, if you apply early decision to us, you cannot apply early action anywhere else. There's also schools that say, well, you can apply early decision to us, but you can't apply to other early decision schools. And so you can't apply to early action schools. So if you are thinking about applying early decision to any school, you should check in on that school's website to see what their early decision policy is, right? Again, you don't want to be in a situation where it's like, oops, I did the wrong thing. And then like, I applied to, this school early decision. They had like a no other early action policy, but I applied early action here. And then by some way or another, like I told them about it, and now they don't like me because I didn't follow the rules. Okay. All right. And if there are additional questions, again, just put them in the Q&A, put them in the chat, make sure that we can kind of do that. Okay. All right. We have another comment here. It says, I think Stanford REA is October 15th. From everything that I know about, it's actually November 1st, right? If you are turning in a like arts portfolio, I think it might be October 15th, but just a regular student with no arts portfolio should be November 1st. Okay. All right, we have another question here, or kind of a question, right? We are planning to apply to one ED and then several EA. Hypothetically, if a college states that they meet 100% demonstrated need and I do not want to take out any loans, what is my resolution if there is no compromise? So again, I think we actually talked about this last week, didn't we? We talked about demonstrated need and them like saying, oh, we fulfill 100% of demonstrated need, we fill up, right? So let's say that I think the hypothetical that you're talking about is like, let's say that you apply to a school and the total cost of attendance is $80,000 a year. And then like based on kind of like your family situation, they come back to you with an offer that says, you know what, we're going to give you $80,000 in loans, right? And you're like, well, that doesn't work for our family. It's not going to work out. Financially, it doesn't make any sense. You have two options there, right? And obviously, this family that's asking is part of our program, right? And so if you are part of our program, then we're going to go to bat for you and kind of help you with that appeal process, right? But if you're doing it on your own, you would want to appeal as well, right? You need to show them that this is not going to work out. It is not feasible for your family to do this. And so you basically kind of give them two options. It's like, you need to give me more money, like free money, right? Or you need to let me out of my early decision agreement, right? So I think that is the question that you're asking, but I might have misunderstood, right? But 100% demonstrated need, you have to remember that when they say that they fulfill 100% demonstrated need, they can give you a 100% loan, and still in their statistics, it still shows up as they gave you 100% of your demonstrated need, right? So it never kind of differentiates between free money and loans. So the financial aid they give you includes, right, loans and free money. That's why I said, like, I think it was last week that we did this. But when a school says, oh, our average student gets $25,000 in financial aid, they don't tell us what percentage of that is loans versus free money. So I always said, take it with a grain of salt. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. So I'll do last call on questions. I'll also kind of put the kind of link for our financial aid consultation into the chat one more time, just to make sure that you guys have that. Copy it, open it, have it somewhere, because once I close down the Zoom, it will be gone, right? But we will take last call for questions. And if you guys don't have any questions, obviously, thank you guys for, spending a little time with me on a Wednesday night here. Okay. All right. So I think I can hear some people typing, so I'm going to give them a little bit more time to go ahead and ask those questions, and we should be good to go. All right, and we have a question here. It says, what is the difference between early decision and restrictive early action? Only that one is binding? Not necessarily, right? The difference between early decision and restrictive early action, that is one of the differences. That one is binding and that one is not, right? The other really big difference is the kind of like strategy that you can employ if you're applying early decision versus if you're applying restrictive early action, right? So let's just take Stanford, for instance, right? Stanford is restrictive early action. If you apply to Stanford restrictive early action, you can't apply anywhere early decision, and you can't apply anywhere else early action, right? But for kind of like let's choose like Columbia, which is early decision, right? For Columbia, if you apply to Columbia early decision, that still means that you can apply to Santa Clara early action, you can apply to Case Western early action, you can apply to USC early action, right? So there's just a lot more options available for you in the early processes. Okay. Here, okay, for this family, it says, can you elaborate on essay help that you mentioned earlier? So since you're already part of our coaching program, this is for people that are not part of our coaching program, right? So for people that, just want some help on their essays for their students, this is a program for them. But for you, you have access to our essay submission portal. So anytime that your student needs help with their essays, they just go ahead and drop it into that portal, and then we will get back to them with some feedback. Okay. All right, sounds good. So I am not seeing any additional questions here, right? If you guys do have questions about your financial situation, your student is heading off to college, other things, right? Please let us know, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look here. Your question says, thank you for your response. Can an average parent negotiate an appeal and be successful? I know that you have 15 years of experience, but I was wondering how helpful financial aid officers are. So you have to remember, the financial aid officers at your school are not there as like, oh, let me help you. They are gatekeepers to their school's money, okay? So they don't want to give it out, right? I even feel like at the end of the year, depending on how much money they didn't give out, like they probably get bonuses, right? But that's just my evil mind thinking that way, okay? But generally speaking, it's all about the way you present your story. And we've found like a very kind of simple and very formulaic way that you need to kind of present your case in order for the colleges to kind of bend at our will. Okay. So we've been very successful at it. We've done it, hundreds and hundreds of times. Can an average parent, like a normal parent, just do it? Yeah, of course you can. But it's a lot of kind of back and forth. It's a lot of kind of understanding the exact situations and kind of what can be done and what can't be done. So there's a lot of knowledge base that does definitely need to be there. Okay. Here, just one second. I'm going to check on one thing for this family. Just give me 1 second here. So yes, we do see that it came in yesterday. For that person that was asking about the essay, we'll be looking at it later tonight. Okay. Yeah, it actually does look like. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, it looks like one of our coaches is taking a look at it. So it should be back to you tonight, later tonight. Okay. We have another question here, and it says, can you apply REA to Stanford and EA to UT Austin at the same time? California, Texas, does it make a difference? No. So technically speaking, if you do it to Stanford, you are not allowed to do it anywhere else. The only exception that I've seen to this rule is that Stanford is, for some reason, allowing students to apply to USC. Okay. But I will kind of throw this out there, right? The one school that I tell students not to apply restrictive early action to is Stanford, right? Now, if you want more information on that, sign up for a financial aid consultation, and I'll tell you my 2 cents about why a student shouldn't, okay? We have another question here. Says, do you have a list of schools which do EDEA, REA? There's no definitive list because schools change it all every single time. The best way to figure it out is to add the schools to your list, right? On your Common App, add them to your college list. And then on the first page of the information, it'll tell you what different admissions processes they have. Early action, early decision 1, early decision 2, restrictive early action, single choice early action. They'll tell you on that first page. Okay, and that will be the most up-to-date information. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll kind of end it off there today. Again, if you guys are interested in signing up for a consultation, this is your last chance to click on it in the chat before it disappears. Okay. But it was great talking to you guys tonight. If you guys do have any additional questions, please reach out, right? And we'll see you guys back here again next week, where we will be talking about some new and exciting things. Hopefully there's no bad news about financial aid. Okay. But this weekend, our team is taking a break from the travels of our college application intensives. But for our families that we're going to be meeting in San Jose on September 7th and 8th, I'm really looking forward to it, right? And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, okay? Everyone have a good night, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.